So why form an association? The main driver behind the need to form an association is that we wanted to apply consistency of standards across the sector, because that's the one area we think has been a major gap in the last few years. And there's two prime reasons why that has been the main driver. First of all, there's been the growth in the number of people applying to become property guardians, and the growth in the number of companies providing such a service, such a program. And so when you've had that sort of growth, you've attracted a number of experienced property managers and estate managers, people like Ad Hoc, who've been originally started in the Netherlands, where the property guardian schemes first developed in the early 90s and have since grown now. I think they have nearly 40,000 property guardians. If you were to extrapolate that to the population in Britain, then it could potentially be an audience of 100,000 guardians. So it's a bit more significant than it is at the moment, 10 times more. So you have the experienced property managers like Ad Hoc and also VPS. Doug Edwards, the managing director of VPS Guardians, is here today as well. VPS stands for Vacant Property Specialists, so they've been in the business for 20 years and been specialising in protecting vacant properties. That's at one end of the scale, but at the other end of the scale, in terms of people who are starting up property guardian companies, frankly, I suppose at the other end you have cowboys, people who don't have property management experience, who don't have estates management experience, jumping in on what they see as a potential growth sector. And in between that, you've got a whole range of people, some of whom are earnest and they want to do a good job and they want to do a professional job about providing a property guardian program, right through to those who've got, as I say, the experience to back that up with. So one of the key reasons why we think there needs to be an association is to apply a consistency in the standards that are set about how those vacant buildings are managed, to make sure that they meet the safety and standards benchmarks. And I suppose the second reason really that was a driver behind forming the association was that after the first few years where most of the media angle was live like an aristocrat in a mansion for a pittance, the last couple of years there's been a considerably wider range of media reporting, especially after the Bristol court case last year, where there was a judgment made that a licensee property guardian was in fact a tenant. Now, since then, that judgment has been considered flawed for a number of reasons. First, in terms of the judgment itself was flawed, but also in the way that the property management company handled that particular building was also mismanaged. They have to take some of the blame too for that confusion between what is a licensee and what is a tenant. And by all means, in the few minutes we'll have at the end of this, if you want to ask us more questions about that, we're very happy to go into that in more detail. So we started getting bad press, and deservedly so. Some of the conditions of some of the properties were highly questionable. And my favourite one is that particular one at the end. UK's property guardians live in a world of constant anxiety, and the subline heading was, "It's like squatting, but you have to pay." Now that kind of reportage ain't going to help the sector at all. So one of the drivers behind it, and one of the reasons why we formed this association, and why the 7 major companies that have done so, is to make sure that we not only set a high bar of quality, of safety and standards, but that we comply with it. And one of my jobs as acting chair and secretary of the Property Guardian Providers Association is to crack the whip sometimes. I'm not prepared to turn a blind eye to members who don't apply and don't comply with that. They've got to, if they want to make this sector successful, if they want to see this sector grow, we've got to make sure that either we regulate it properly, or there'll be regulations coming in to do so on our behalf. So the purpose of the Pgpa is to promote the best practice within the property guardian sector, and with all the legal and safety standard regulations adhered to or exceeded by its members. And to provide the association for members to share the ideas and develop ideas across to improve the industry and to encourage the sector's growth and expansion. Now, we've only just formally constituted 3-4 weeks ago, so it's a very new organisation. But in that short time, I've already had queries and questions from other property guardian providers and other members saying, how do we handle this, and how do we actually, what is the law around such and such an issue? So it's already having an effect to be able to show people these are the standards that we've set. This is the criteria that we're setting now. So it's a developing, moving operation on that. And we also want to provide a voice in the sector to help shape its future and its regulatory environment. We want to work with the local authorities and the government to do such things. And as it happened on Monday, there was a debate in the House of Lords brought about by the Green Party peer, Baroness Jones. She asked a question to the government about property guardians and what is the government's assessment now of the issues following the London Assembly's investigation into the property guardian sector last year. It was a very good debate. The 4 peers spoke in the hour-long debate from all parties, and the Lord Bourne, the government minister in the Ministry of Housing, Local Government and Communities, said that he wants to meet with the association to look at the standards and to inspect that as well. And Baroness Jones has also been very active and vocal in encouraging them, which we welcome. These are the 7 founding members. Ad hoc Camelot Europe, not Camelot UK, which was involved in the Bristol case, and Camelot Europe is their parent company that took over. DEX, Low, Living Guardians, Guardians of London, VPS. We think that others will come and join us. We're looking to encourage them to do so, so that they also will pin their badge to the benchmark that we're setting for standards around safety. What have we done so far? Well, we issued a paper last year on the law of property guardianship. One of the things we wanted to do was set the record straight about what is the law. There's some confusion about it, particularly after the Bristol court case. So we commissioned Giles Peaker, who works for Anthony Gold Solicitors. He's one of the leading housing lawyers in the UK, and also Arden Chambers, Arden QC, and one of his fellow barristers to write a white paper about it. So they wrote 40 pages on what the status of what the law is on property guardianship, and that's available on our website and on any of the property guardian members' websites as well. So if you wanted to look at that. And very interestingly, when we sent it to Baroness Jones in advance of her debate on Monday, one of her research assistants wrote back to us and saying, "Thank you very much for that. I had a very interesting read of this. We think it actually gives more information and understanding about the law on property guardianship than the current government has available to their own resource." So that was really nice to hear. We've set up a guardian redress scheme that only guardians who are guardians of member companies of the member companies of Pgpa can access. It's an independent scheme. It's fair. There are 2 members of the association will be part of the panel, but there are 2 independent members who are not members of the panel, of the association on the panel. And if there's a split in the vote on a particular complaint or an issue, it's one of the independent members that will be the chair and have the casting vote. And that's the first time that's happened in this sector. So we hope that will be seen as a welcome move. We participated in London Assembly investigation and the York University's follow-up. Both very interesting information and comments, and this is a debate which we welcome and want to be part of. We've implemented stringent membership criteria, which either people have to prove that they are either ISO qualified for their quality management, and they also have to show that they've got the experience to run property management of property estate schemes, and there's a number of other criteria too, which are published on the website. And we've also published other regulations in terms of transparency around fees, so that people are very upfront about what fees are going to be charged, and also in keeping security payments and fees separate from in separate guardian accounts, so it's not all lumped into one account. And finally, we've just conducted a sector-wide census. I mean, Simon referred to some of the stats that came out of it in an earlier slide, and we're going to issue that in the next few weeks. In the near future, we want to give you some time if you want any questions. We're going to issue a standard fire emergency and evacuation plan that every member will apply to the properties that they're managing. We're looking for an input from all the stakeholders. That's not just members, but property owners, guardians and authorities themselves to help shape the future of the sector. And we're looking to lobby and to talk with local authorities and government to raise the profile of the industry and the associations. We've also, and that's, as I say, Monday night's debate in the House of Lords was a good step towards that. And we're providing the benchmark technical standards. Over the next few months, a few more will be issued and they'll be posted on the website. So if you would want further information, there's the website, propertyguardianproviders.com. You can email me at info@. We're such a small, new organisation that we don't have a stand here, apologies, otherwise it'd just be me standing behind it. If you have got questions or if you want to talk a bit more about the association, come up to me and have a word with me, or email us at that email address. Did you want to add anything?
No, I suppose really we've got a couple of minutes, so if anybody had any questions they wanted to fire to us, then feel free. Or